Marcus Rodriguez had been with the Special Operations Division for 8 years, and he thought he had seen everything. The grizzled veteran carried himself with the confidence of someone who had earned his reputation through countless missions across 3 different war zones. His team respected him, his superiors trusted his judgment, and he had never failed to complete an objective. That confidence would be tested on a cold February night in the mountains of Eastern Europe. The briefing had been standard protocol. Intelligence suggested that a high-value target, a weapons dealer named Viktor Kozlov, would be meeting with potential buyers in an abandoned industrial complex near the border. The facility had been closed for decades, its concrete structures now serving as a perfect hideout for illegal activities. The mission was straightforward: surveillance and potential extraction of intelligence, with authorization for lethal force if the situation demanded it. Marcus studied the satellite images spread across the briefing table. The complex consisted of several buildings connected by walkways, with multiple entry and exit points. Perfect for criminals, challenging for law enforcement. His team would need to position themselves strategically to cover all possible escape routes, while maintaining clear lines of sight for both surveillance and engagement. 3 hours into the surveillance operation, Sarah's enhanced observational training began paying dividends in ways that would have surprised her teammates. Through her scope, she had been tracking subtle movements and patterns that indicated the presence of at least 12 individuals in the complex, significantly more than the 4 to 6 people the intelligence briefing had suggested. More concerning, she had identified what appeared to be organized patrol patterns and defensive positions. Overwatch to team leader. The approaching vehicles changed everything about the tactical situation. Sarah's enhanced training included advanced threat assessment protocols, and what she observed through her scope sent alarm signals through every aspect of her specialized education. 3 military-style vehicles were approaching fast, and the distinctive profile of one vehicle suggested it carried heavy machine gun mounts that could devastate her teammates' position. All stations, this is Overwatch, she transmitted urgently. Multiple hostile vehicles approaching from the east. Heavy weapons probable. Estimated arrival 4 minutes. Recommend immediate extraction. Marcus's response came back strained with the stress of ongoing combat. Negative, Overwatch. We've got wounded. David took shrapnel from a grenade blast. We can't move fast enough to reach extraction before those vehicles arrive. The tactical mathematics were brutal and clear. Her teammates were pinned down with a wounded operator, hostile reinforcements with superior firepower were approaching, and the only thing standing between a successful extraction and a catastrophic loss was her rifle and her unique training. This was exactly the kind of impossible scenario her instructors had used to separate exceptional marksmen from merely competent ones. Sarah's mind shifted into the advanced tactical mode her training had developed. She needed to stop or significantly delay the approaching vehicles, while simultaneously continuing to suppress the hostile fighters already in the complex. Standard doctrine said this was impossible for a single sniper, but her specialized program had been designed specifically to create operators who could exceed standard limitations. She identified her targets systematically. The lead vehicle would reach optimal firing position in approximately 3 minutes, and would need to be stopped before it could deploy its heavy weapons. The second vehicle carried what appeared to be additional personnel, while the third vehicle seemed to be some kind of command or communication platform. Her enhanced training told her to prioritize targets based on both immediate threat and tactical impact. The first vehicle presented the most complex challenge. Taking out the driver would stop the vehicle but might not prevent the deployment of its weapons systems if there were other operators aboard. However, her advanced ballistics training had included techniques for disabling vehicles through precision shots to specific mechanical components. It was extraordinarily difficult marksmanship, but her instructors had drilled these techniques extensively. Sarah calculated the precise angle and timing needed to disable the lead vehicle's engine block with a single shot. The target was small, moving, and at extended range, but her enhanced training had prepared her for exactly this level of precision. As the vehicle rounded a curve that would provide a brief window of optimal angle, she controlled her breathing and applied her advanced shooting techniques. The shot was perfect. The heavy caliber round struck the engine block at precisely the right angle, causing immediate mechanical failure and bringing the vehicle to a violent stop. The psychological effect was as important as the mechanical damage. The other vehicles immediately began evasive maneuvers, disrupting their tactical formation and buying precious time for her teammates. Outstanding shot, Overwatch. Jake's voice crackled through the radio. How the hell did you stop that truck? But Sarah was already calculating her next engagement. The second vehicle had taken cover behind the disabled lead vehicle and was attempting to deploy personnel to establish firing positions. Her enhanced observational training allowed her to track multiple individuals moving in low-light conditions, and she began systematically engaging targets with a precision that defied normal expectations for combat marksmanship. Each shot was calculated for maximum tactical impact. Rather than simply engaging targets of opportunity, Sarah was implementing advanced combat psychology techniques her instructors had taught her. Every shot was designed to force enemy decision-making in directions that would benefit her teammates, while simultaneously degrading enemy morale and tactical cohesion. Her enhanced training had included extensive work on night combat techniques, and she was using every aspect of that education. Sound discipline, muzzle flash management, and advanced positioning techniques allowed her to maintain the initiative while avoiding counter-battery fire. The hostile forces were beginning to realize they were facing something far beyond their expectations. Overwatch, this is team leader, Marcus transmitted. Whatever you're doing up there, it's working. Hostile fire has decreased significantly. We're preparing to move David to extraction point. Sarah acknowledged while continuing to track targets through her scope. Her specialized training had emphasized the importance of maintaining tactical awareness during sustained engagements, and she could see that her systematic engagement was having the desired psychological effect. The hostile fighters were abandoning prepared positions and seeking deeper cover within the complex. But her enhanced observational skills detected a new threat that would test the absolute limits of her training. The third vehicle had positioned itself approximately 1,200 meters away and was establishing what appeared to be a command post with advanced communication equipment. More importantly, she could see personnel setting up what looked like a precision rifle system of their own. The tactical situation was about to become a sniper duel at extreme range in near-darkness conditions. This was exactly the kind of scenario her classified training program had been designed to address. Her instructors had repeatedly emphasized that exceptional marksmen must be prepared to engage threats that exceed normal tactical parameters. Sarah adjusted her position to get optimal angle on the distant threat while maintaining her ability to continue supporting her teammates. The range was at the absolute limit of her weapon system's effective capabilities, and the shot would require compensation for multiple environmental variables simultaneously. Her enhanced training had included extensive work on extreme-range marksmanship, but this would test every technique she had learned. As she settled into her firing position, Sarah's mind automatically began processing the complex ballistic calculations required for the shot. Wind speed and direction at multiple altitudes, air temperature variations, target movement patterns, and the specific ballistic characteristics of her ammunition all had to be factored into the shooting solution. Her specialized training had developed her ability to perform these calculations rapidly under extreme stress. The shot required absolute precision. At 1,200 meters, even a small error in calculation would result in a complete miss, and the psychological advantage she had established over the hostile forces would be lost. Moreover, the enemy sniper was clearly competent and would be scanning for her position. She would have one opportunity to make the shot before coming under effective counterfire. Sarah controlled her breathing and applied every technique her advanced training had taught her. The rifle settled into perfect stability, her sight picture aligned precisely with the calculated aim point, and her trigger control reflected hundreds of hours of specialized instruction. As she applied pressure to the trigger, she was implementing marksmanship techniques that exceeded standard military doctrine. The shot crossed the valley in just over 2 seconds, covering the extreme distance with the precision that her instructors had demanded during her classified training. Through her scope, Sarah could see the immediate impact as the enemy sniper position was neutralized and the command post personnel scattered for cover. The psychological effect was decisive. The hostile forces had been prepared to deal with standard law enforcement tactics, but Sarah's precision marksmanship at extreme range under combat conditions was beyond their capability to counter. Within minutes, she could observe through her scope that the remaining enemy fighters were beginning a general retreat from the complex. Overwatch to team leader, she transmitted. Hostile forces are retreating. Enemy command position neutralized. Clear path to extraction point confirmed. Marcus's voice came back with a mixture of relief and amazement. Roger, Overwatch. Outstanding work. We're moving to extraction now with David. Meet us at Rally Point Alpha. As Sarah began packing her equipment, she reflected on how the night had unfolded. Her specialized training had been put to the ultimate test, and every aspect of her enhanced education had proven its value. The classified program that had developed her unique skills had created capabilities that went far beyond standard military marksmanship. The extraction went smoothly, with the team reaching safety without further contact. As they debriefed in the secure facility, Marcus looked at Sarah with a completely different perspective than he had held at the beginning of the mission. The quiet rookie he had assigned to backup duty had demonstrated marksmanship skills that exceeded anything in his 8 years of operational experience. "Chun," he said finally, "I need to know what kind of training you actually received. Those shots tonight were impossible by any standard doctrine I know." Sarah considered her response carefully. The classified nature of her previous program meant she couldn't discuss specifics, but her performance during the mission had clearly demonstrated that she was far more than the backup operator Marcus had assumed her to be. "Specialized marksmanship program," she replied simply. "Designed to exceed standard parameters for precision shooting under combat conditions." Marcus nodded slowly, beginning to understand that his assumptions about the new team member had been completely wrong. The person he had relegated to what he considered a backup role had actually been the most qualified operator on the team for the specific challenges they had faced. "Well," he said finally, "I think we need to revise our tactical planning procedures." "And Chun? Next mission, your primary Overwatch, not backup." Sarah simply nodded. She had never considered herself backup anyway. Her specialized training had prepared her to be the solution when impossible problems arose, and tonight had proven that her unique skills could make the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. The night had indeed lit up with perfect sniper shots, transforming what could have been a disaster into a successful operation through the application of marksmanship techniques that exceeded standard military expectations. Marcus's assumption about backup support had been completely wrong, but the mistake had inadvertently placed Sarah in exactly the position where her extraordinary training could have maximum impact. As the team prepared for debriefing with their superiors, Sarah quietly cleaned her rifle and reflected on how her specialized education had been validated under the ultimate test of real combat conditions. The classified program that had developed her skills had succeeded in creating an operator capable of achieving the impossible when her teammates needed it most. Whispered into her radio, "I'm seeing coordinated movement patterns. This doesn't look like a simple meeting. Recommend caution on approach." Marcus's voice crackled back through her earpiece. "Copy, Overwatch. We're seeing the same thing from our position. Looks like our intelligence was incomplete. Maintain surveillance, and be ready to provide support." What Marcus didn't realize was that Sarah had identified something even more significant through her advanced training in threat assessment. The movement patterns she was observing suggested these weren't just criminals conducting a business transaction. The discipline, coordination, and tactical positioning indicated military or paramilitary training among the occupants of the complex. At 2,347 hours, everything changed. Sarah was conducting a routine sweep of the perimeter through her scope when she caught movement in her peripheral vision. A figure was moving along the ridgeline approximately 400 meters to her northwest, clearly attempting to maintain concealment, but visible to someone with her level of training. As she shifted her scope to investigate, her blood ran cold. The figure was carrying a rifle and moving in a pattern that indicated he was searching for something specific. Within seconds, Sarah realized what was happening. The team had walked into a trap. The criminals had anticipated law enforcement interest and had positioned their own Overwatch elements to eliminate any surveillance teams. "All stations, this is Overwatch," she transmitted urgently. "We have hostile Overwatch moving on our perimeter. You are potentially compromised. Before anyone could respond, the night exploded into chaos. Muzzle flashes erupted from multiple positions around the complex as the criminals opened fire on Marcus's team. The coordinated nature of the attack confirmed Sarah's assessment. This was a prepared ambush, not a reaction to being discovered. Contact! Contact! Marcus's voice shouted through the radio. Multiple hostiles, organized resistance. Were pinned down in Building 3. Sarah's training kicked in automatically. Her enhanced program had included extensive scenario work dealing with exactly this type of situation, providing sniper support for a team under heavy fire while simultaneously dealing with hostile counter-snipers. As gunfire echoed across the valley, she began implementing tactics that went far beyond anything in standard military doctrine. First, she identified the hostile overwatch position that posed the greatest immediate threat to her teammates. The enemy sniper was approximately 600 meters away, positioned on high ground with a clear field of fire toward the building where Marcus's team had taken cover. In normal circumstances, this would be a challenging shot due to distance, darkness, and the need for absolute precision to avoid hitting friendly forces. Sarah's specialized training had prepared her for exactly these conditions. She had learned to make precision shots at extended range in low-light conditions, using advanced breathing techniques and mental calculation methods that allowed for compensation of multiple variables simultaneously. As she settled into her firing position, her mind automatically began processing wind speed, air temperature, target movement patterns, and ballistic trajectory. The first shot was perfect. The hostile sniper dropped immediately, eliminating the most serious threat to her team. But Sarah knew this was only the beginning. Her enhanced observational skills had already identified at least 3 other elevated positions where enemy fighters could establish firing positions, and her tactical training told her they would react quickly to the loss of their overwatch. Overwatch to team leader. She transmitted while working the bolt of her rifle. Hostile overwatch neutralized. I count at least 10 more hostiles in the complex, organized defensive positions. You need to move. Marcus's response came between bursts of automatic weapons fire. Negative overwatch. Too much fire between us and the extraction point. We're trapped. This was exactly the scenario Sarah had trained for in the classified program. Her instructors had repeatedly emphasized that standard military doctrine often failed in complex tactical situations, and that exceptional marksmen needed to think beyond simple target engagement. She needed to create opportunities for her team while simultaneously suppressing multiple hostile positions. Sarah shifted her position slightly to get better angles on the complex below. Through her scope, she could see muzzle flashes from at least 6 different firing positions. The enemy fighters were using good tactical discipline, firing from covered positions and moving between shots to avoid counterfire. Against a normal sniper, these tactics would be highly effective. But Sarah's training had included advanced techniques for engaging multiple moving targets in rapid succession. She had learned to track multiple targets simultaneously, calculating firing solutions for each while maintaining awareness of her teammates' positions and potential civilian presence. Most importantly, she had been trained to make shots that would have psychological impact beyond their immediate tactical effect. Her second shot took down a machine gunner who had been suppressing her team from an elevated position in the main building. The shot was technically impossible by normal standards, nearly 700 meters, through a gap in concrete debris that provided only seconds of target visibility in near-complete darkness. But her enhanced training had taught her to use sound, muzzle flash patterns, and even the reflection of moonlight off metal surfaces to establish precise target locations. The psychological effect was immediate. The hostile fighters had expected to deal with a standard law enforcement response, not precision marksmanship that could reach them in positions they considered safe. Sarah could see through her scope that several enemy fighters were beginning to abandon their prepared positions, seeking deeper cover within the buildings. Overwatch to team leader, she transmitted. Hostile suppression successful. I can see movement toward the rear of the complex. They're repositioning, probably planning to evacuate. You have approximately 3 minutes to move before they establish new firing positions. Marcus didn't hesitate. Roger, Overwatch. Moving now. Continue suppression. As her teammates began moving toward a more defensible position, Sarah identified a new problem. Three hostile fighters were attempting to flank her team's position by moving through a drainage system that connected the buildings. Standard doctrine would have been to report the flanking movement and let the team deal with it, but her enhanced training had taught her to think more aggressively. The flanking fighters were moving through terrain that provided excellent cover from ground-level observation, but left them exposed to elevated positions. Sarah calculated a series of shots that would eliminate the flanking threat while simultaneously driving other hostile fighters away from positions where they could engage her teammates. Her third shot stopped the flanking movement cold, taking down the lead fighter just as he emerged from cover. The precision and timing of the shot sent a clear message to the remaining hostile forces. Nowhere in the complex was safe from her rifle. But Sarah knew she needed to do more than simply react to threats. Her specialized training had emphasized the importance of seizing tactical initiative through superior marksmanship. She began systematically engaging targets in a pattern designed to drive the hostile fighters toward predetermined positions where her teammates could engage them more effectively. Each shot was calculated not just for immediate effect, but for its psychological and tactical impact on enemy decision-making. This was advanced combat tactics that went far beyond anything Marcus had seen in his 8 years of operational experience. Jesus Christ, Tom's voice came through the radio. Overwatch, what the hell kind of training did you have? These shots are impossible. Sarah didn't respond immediately. She was too focused on tracking multiple targets simultaneously while calculating firing solutions for increasingly complex scenarios. Her enhanced training had taught her to maintain complete situational awareness while engaging targets, and she could see that the hostile forces were beginning to break down under the pressure of precision fire from an unexpected direction. The tide of the engagement had turned completely. What had begun as a carefully planned ambush against Marcus's team had become a rout as the hostile fighters found themselves unable to maintain defensive positions under Sarah's precise and relentless fire. Her specialized training was proving its value in ways that would have impressed even her former instructors. But the night wasn't over yet. Sarah's enhanced observational skills had detected something that would test every aspect of her unique training. Additional vehicles were approaching the complex from the east, and the radio chatter she was monitoring suggested that reinforcements were arriving with heavy weapons and advanced tactical equipment. The real challenge was just beginning. "We'll need someone on Overwatch," Marcus said, pointing to a hill approximately 800 meters from the main building. "Standard sniper support, just in case things go sideways." He looked around the room at his assembled team. For experienced operators, each with their own specialty. Then, his eyes landed on the newest addition to their unit. Sarah Chun sat quietly in the corner, reviewing her own copy of the mission brief. At 26, she was significantly younger than the rest of the team, and her slight frame made her appear even less imposing among the battle-hardened soldiers. Marcus knew her file by heart. Excellent marks in training, top of her class in the sniper school, but zero combat experience. She had been assigned to their unit just 3 weeks ago, and this would be her first real operation. Chun can take the Overwatch position, Marcus decided, almost as an afterthought. Good training opportunity for the rookie. He didn't notice the slight tightening around Sarah's eyes at the word rookie, or the way her jaw set just a fraction harder. In his mind, this was a simple assignment. Position her somewhere safe, let her observe through a scope, and maybe she would learn something useful for future missions. The other team members exchanged glances. They had worked with Marcus long enough to recognize when he was placing someone in what he considered a backup role. Tom Harrison, the team's communications specialist, had tried to engage Sarah in conversation during her first week, asking about her training and background. She had been polite but reserved, offering only basic information about her time at the academy and her previous assignment at a training facility. What none of them knew, including Sarah herself, was that her previous assignment had been anything but ordinary. The training facility had been a cover for an experimental program designed to identify and develop exceptional marksmen for classified operations. For 18 months, Sarah had undergone intensive training that went far beyond standard military protocols. She had learned to make impossible shots in conditions that would challenge even veteran snipers. The program had been quietly discontinued when budget cuts forced the military to consolidate special projects, and The participants had been transferred to regular units without their specialized training being noted in their standard files. Sarah had requested the transfer to Marcus's team specifically because she wanted real operational experience, but she had been instructed not to discuss the classified program with her new teammates. As the team prepared their equipment, Sarah methodically checked her rifle. The weapon was a standard-issue precision rifle, familiar but not quite the same as the advanced system she had trained with in the program. She had learned to adapt to different platforms quickly, understanding that real operations rarely provided ideal conditions or perfect equipment. Marcus watched her handle the weapon and nodded approvingly. Her movements were efficient and professional, exactly what he expected from someone fresh out of training. He assumed her careful attention to detail was the result of nervousness, the natural reaction of someone about to face their first real combat situation. He had no way of knowing that she was actually calculating wind patterns, estimating distances, and running through complex ballistic computations in her head. The team loaded into 2 vehicles for the drive to the operational area. Marcus rode in the lead vehicle with Tom and Jake Martinez, their demolitions expert, while Sarah rode in the second vehicle with David Park, their medical specialist. The conversation in her vehicle was minimal, partly due to operational security and partly because she was focused on reviewing everything she knew about the target area. David tried to offer some encouragement, thinking she might be nervous. "First mission is always intense," he said quietly. "But Marcus knows what he's doing. You'll be in a safe position, and we'll handle any close contact work." Sarah nodded politely, but internally, she was analyzing the tactical situation from a marksman's perspective. The overwatch position Marcus had selected was good for general surveillance, but she could see potential improvements that would provide better fields of fire and coverage of the entire complex. She considered mentioning her observations, but decided against it. She was the new team member, and suggesting changes to an experienced leader's plan would not be well received. The drive took them through increasingly remote territory, winding mountain roads that eventually gave way to dirt tracks barely wide enough for their vehicles. The industrial complex came into view just as the sun was setting, its concrete structures stark against the darkening sky. Marcus called for a halt about 2 kilometers away, and the team gathered for final preparations. "Chun, you'll take position here," Marcus said, indicating a spot on his tactical map. 800 meters from the main building, clear line of sight, good cover. Set up your hide, and maintain radio contact. Report any movement, but do not engage unless I give explicit orders. Sarah studied the position and mentally compared it to what she could see of the actual terrain. The location would work for basic surveillance, but there were better options available that would provide superior angles and coverage. She could identify at least 3 alternative positions that would offer better tactical advantages, but she kept her observations to herself. "Understood," she replied simply. "What's the communication protocol?" "Standard check-ins every 15 minutes unless you have something urgent to report," Tom explained. "We'll be moving in closer to establish observation posts around the perimeter. If shooting starts, you provide overwatch and covering fire as needed." The team dispersed to their assigned positions as darkness settled over the valley. Sarah made her way to the designated overwatch point, moving carefully through the rocky terrain with her rifle and equipment pack. The position was adequate, just as she had expected, but as she settled in and began setting up her hide, she noticed several tactical problems that Marcus had missed in his planning. The primary issue was that the chosen position, while providing a good view of the main building, had limited visibility of the secondary structures where targets might take cover during a firefight. Additionally, the angle would make precision shots extremely difficult if engagement occurred near the building's entrance, where shadows from the structure would complicate target identification. As Sarah established her position and adjusted her scope, she found herself automatically calculating improvements to the team's tactical setup. Her specialized training had taught her to think beyond simple marksmanship, considering how sniper support could be optimized to enhance overall mission effectiveness. She identified 3 specific positions that would provide better coverage and began mentally mapping firing solutions for various scenarios. Through her scope, she began systematic surveillance of the complex, noting details that might be relevant to the mission. The buildings showed signs of recent activity, fresh tire tracks, disturbed debris patterns, and subtle indicators that people had been moving through the area regularly. Her enhanced observational training allowed her to read these signs in ways that would have impressed her teammates, but she dutifully reported only the basic facts through her radio. Overwatch to team leader, she whispered into her microphone. Target area shows signs of recent activity. Fresh vehicle tracks on the east side. Main entrance appears to be in use. Copy that, Overwatch, Marcus responded. Continue surveillance and report any new movement. As the hours passed, Sarah maintained her watch through the scope, her specialized training allowing her to remain alert and focused far longer than typical operators. She began to detect patterns in the ambient sounds and movements around the complex that suggested the presence of multiple individuals, probably more than the intelligence briefing had indicated. The night was about to become far more complicated than any of them had anticipated, and Sarah's unique skills would soon transform from what Marcus considered backup support into the critical factor that would determine whether the mission succeeded or failed catastrophically.